Great. Can you hear me and see my screen correctly, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So thanks everybody. For those that I haven't met yet, I'm Auriel Fournier. I'm the new director that started last summer out at Forbes Biological Station. And I am going to talk about nesting wetland bird success today, but I'm also going to provide a bit of an update on a couple of other things that have been going on at the station as well, since I know it's been a little while since we've all been together. So I wanted to start and just let folks know about some of the exciting things we have going on in regards to our folks. So Chris Hine retired last September, and as a result, we now have Josh Osborne back, which we're very excited about. And we have two master's students who have recently finished. So Sam Klimas finished up last fall and has recently started with the Illinois DNR, and then Luke Malinchuk will be defending this coming Friday. And we've also brought in two new students. So we've got some folks going and some folks coming, which is really exciting. We'll also have a new quantitative ecologist starting with us next month. Her name is Chelsea Cross, and she comes from a herpetology background, but she'll be bringing a lot of really great quantitative expertise to our team. So I've got a couple slides for a couple different projects I'm going to go through to provide folks kind of some updates on different things in relation to Emiquon. And the first one I'm going to dive into are some slides from Josh Osborne about the wetland vegetation communities in relation to drawdowns at Emiquon. So I think we're all pretty familiar with how dramatically Emiquon has changed since 2007. We've seen really big changes in our land cover communities, moving from kind of a largely post-agricultural landscape in 2007 to a lot of open water and aquatic bed habitat in 2015. Then as we went through drawdowns from 2016 through 2018, we moved from having a lot of aquatic bed, which is that squiggly white and green land cover on the left there, to more of a non-persistent emergent cover in 2018. Which from the perspective of providing habitat for migratory and breeding wetland birds is really exciting, because that non-persistent emergent vegetation provides a lot of seed resources and a lot of cover to these different species of nesting birds. And so just wanted to provide a couple of graphs as well to kind of compare our trajectories for these different cover types. Before and after these drawdowns started occurring. So before the drawdowns, are the
Auriel, you're breaking up.
Was declining and open water was increasing. Drawdowns occurring were starting out. I'll cut out my video and see if that helps. Okay. And so then we also have for our hemimarsh and our persistent emergent, we were seeing decline. And now that we are after drawdowns, we're starting to see, still working on the 2019 cover maps. And then we started to see more persistent emergent. And that increase in persistent emergent, now that we're going through these drawdown cycles, is really encouraging for providing habitat for some of our state and threatened and endangered species, such as common gallinules and least bitterns. The biggest change that we've seen, of course, is in our non-persistent emergent vegetation. We had largely lost that cover type at Emiquon in the years prior to the drawdown, but we've seen really dramatic increases. And we're really curious to see, as we go through additional drawdowns in the coming years, how Emiquon continues to respond, because of course, the vegetation isn't only responding to the drawdown, there's a lot of other factors at play as well. And so we're curious to see if this trend continues. In addition to the cover type, we also look at seed densities and duck energy days. And here the pre-drawdown values are our blue lines, and our post-drawdown values are our yellow lines. The horizontal lines that you see there on the left graph, the green dashed one is for Chautauqua National Wildlife Refuge, and the gray dashed one is for Illinois DNR properties. And you can see that when we were kind of pre-drawdown, Emiquon was bouncing around and sometimes higher, sometimes lower than these other reference sites. But now that we're experiencing these drawdowns at Emiquon, we're seeing seed densities that are much higher than these other reference sites, which is quite exciting because those seeds are very important food resources for a lot of our migrating waterfowl, as well as other species. We're also seeing some changes in our soil characteristics. Some are remaining fairly stable, bulk density, POM, things like that, but water depth and transparency are experiencing variation as the soils are experiencing more perturbations with the drawdowns that they're going through. We're seeing drawdowns help with reducing of some of our invasive species that were on upward trends prior to the drawdown and are now experiencing more stable conditions at lower densities than they were prior to that. And that's true for these species as well. You know, a drawdown is an attempt to mimic the natural disturbance that would be happening in the system before we had levees up and down the Illinois River. And so it makes a lot of sense that adding that disturbance back into the system helps to knock back these invasive species. You know, we often talk about restoration in terms of the marsh cycle. And, you know, we kind of seem to be in the lake marsh stage before we moved into starting to do drawdowns. And through the drawdowns through 2018, it now appears that we've kind of moved back into the dry marsh stage. We've reset things. And so we're really excited to see where these continued drawdowns and continued management at Emiquon takes us in the future and how we can continue to provide some really high quality habitat out on the preserve. Okay, sorry. So I have a couple other projects I'd like to update you all on briefly. One is our wood duck project led by Andy Gilbert. We're wrapping up year 2, moving into year 3 for this project, focusing on the post-breeding ecology of wood ducks in the Illinois River Valley. For the first year of the project, we largely put these bib VHF transmitters on wood ducks, and then in the second year, we did a combination of VHF and GSM. And our goal was to better understand how these birds are moving around the Illinois River Valley. Many of the birds were trapped and tagged on Emiquon, but we also put out tags up and down river. And for the maps that you're seeing here, these are demonstrating the points where we have detected birds through VHF tracking all throughout the Illinois River Valley. You can see that they cover a pretty large area, and they also leave the river valley and go up into some of these upland environments as well. You know, kind of a few of the unexpected things we found here is that these birds are using a fair amount of habitat in ditches, and they're also using some of these really isolated farm ponds, which is not habitat that we typically think about wood ducks using. We also have a fair number of birds with GSM transmitters on them, which allows us to track them when they leave the Illinois River Valley. We're still kind of getting our data back from our first year of that, but we're excited to be able to better understand where the wood ducks here in Illinois spend the winter and how long it takes them to go back and forth. Cheyenne Beach, who's a graduate student of Chris Jakes at Western, is a student at Forbes and is working on the sublethal impacts of trematodes on lesser scaup through some captive experiments that she's been doing the past couple of years. So lesser scaup as a whole are experiencing population declines, and there's a lot of concern that trematodes could be one of the contributing factors. We know that they cause direct mortalities, but there's also concern about sublethal effects that could be influencing their ability to survive long term and also their reproductive success. And so Cheyenne has been working through a couple different trials. She's completed 2 so far, where she's giving the birds a known dosage of trematodes and then trying to understand how it's impacting their physiology. She's done it with a set of wild-caught birds and a set of birds that she hatched out in captivity. And we now have birds in captivity who are getting used to life at the station, who will be going through her final trial this coming summer. So we're really excited to see where all the results from her work take us. The station has also done a fair bit of true metabolizable energy work in the past, and we're continuing that now. We have a new master's student, Matt Williams, who's going to be co-advised by myself and Chris Jakes. And his project, at least for the current bit that he's working on, is focused on providing a better diversity of duck species. Oftentimes TME work focuses in on 1 or 2 ducks. And so we're adding to the diversity of the ducks that are being studied, and also to the plants, trying to get some values for invasive and undesirable plant species so we can have a more holistic view of what's going on in our energetics models, and also to help inform wetland management decisions. One thing I've been digging into over the past several months has been the nesting wetland bird project that's been going on at Emiquon since 2013. It focuses on these 9 species, and we've been searching hemi-marsh and persistent emergent habitat every summer, looking for nests, monitoring their success, and measuring variables about the habitat and the management that's taking place. One thing that I think is pretty interesting is that some species are very consistently present. We have leaf bitterns, common gallinules almost every year, black-necked stilts and American coots, black-crowned night herons, also very consistent. But there are others who have come and gone, American bittern, green heron, and sora, which I think kind of speaks to the dynamic nature of Emiquon, and that depending on what's going on, these species are moving around the landscape and responding to local conditions. We have roughly half nest success depending on the species that you're looking at. There's a lot of kind of noise in the data around these success estimates, and that's where the work of another new master's student, Stephanie Schmidt, is going to focus. So she is going to be going out this summer, hopefully, and looking for nests and monitoring them and trying to understand how water level changes are influencing nest success. She's going to be putting out nest cameras that will hopefully allow us to better understand what is causing nest failure and what kind of predators are predating nests. There's a lot of interest in trying to see if when water levels drop out from underneath the nest, does that expose the nest to a different predator community? She's also going to be answering some questions about migratory timing and site fidelity. We also have a couple other upcoming projects I just wanted to mention. We're going to be putting up some automated telemetry towers as a part of the MODIS network around Emiquon and Chautauqua, going up later this summer. This is part of some exploratory work for determining how well these towers work for wetland birds. We're also hoping to be able to still get out this spring and do some rail trapping. The beginning of that has been delayed because of coronavirus, but we're hoping in May to be able to get out and catch some rails out at Emiquon and get a better understanding of what's going on there. We'll be putting some tags on lesser scops starting next spring as well to understand their migratory connectivity. And we also have some new projects going on down in the Gulf of Mexico, kind of coming out of some of the work in my postdoc that I was at before I came up here to Forbes. We'll be working with 3 different birds of conservation concern in tidal marsh and trying to understand the impacts of prescribed fire. So I've covered a lot of information, and there's also a lot of other projects going on at the station that I haven't mentioned, but I just want to say thanks to everybody at Forbes for allowing me to very quickly cover all of your stuff. And if you have questions, these are the specific folks that can help answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that great overview of some of the work that's being conducted at Forbes right now. We do have a couple minutes for some questions. If anybody has some, you can again submit those with the Q&A buttons at the bottom, and I'll turn things over to Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Auriel. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges to providing these important habitats for migratory birds in the Illinois River Valley?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, Mitch's presentation really covered a lot of that. We're seeing an increasingly flashy and difficult to manage water system that is preventing us from doing a lot of management. And I think, you know, in some cases, we have an incomplete understanding of the trade-offs between water level management for breeding birds versus migratory birds as well. But I see that as being less of an issue of actually being able to do the management that we know is good for the birds when the river might not let that happen.
Good. Let me share something that happened here last year. We had a couple rare sightings of birds at Chautauqua and at Emiquon. And one woman came into our office. She was from Arizona and had come to try to see those birds, and she was hopeful that she would see those. Are there ways that we can help the public market these opportunities for tourism in the Illinois River Valley? You've traveled around and worked with these wetland birds in other areas. Are we missing out on opportunities to develop tourism around these, do you think?
I think there certainly are opportunities that we could explore. I've seen good models of this with some of my collaborators down in the Gulf of Mexico, where they've found unique ways of helping folks to encounter some of these more elusive birds that they don't otherwise get to have a look at. I think the big challenge is that for a lot of these birds, they spend most of their time in really dense wetland environments, and that's not an environment that everybody wants to spend time in. And so finding a way to do that in a way that engages people and doesn't, have a detrimental impact on the birds or the habitat can be a bit tricky.
Good. Sounds like something we could work on. Here's another question. What plant species are you finding as the most valuable food sources for waterfowl that inhabit your study sites?
Primarily annual plants who are producing large amounts of seeds. I mean that, some species of waterfowl are still primarily invertebrate feeding, but a lot of the ones that we're trying to manage habitat for are keying in on those seed resources. And that can take a wide variety of plant species.
I think that's all of the questions we had.